So we're going to talk to them, hear their story, and try to help them. So we'll be doing that in the next few minutes. Just before we start, I just want to let you guys know I produced quite a lot of content this week, and I think you'll find some of it useful. One of the things we'll be talking about this evening will be niche marketing. You hear this a lot when you're starting a business, or so we're going to talk to them, hear their story, and that's try to help them. My feedback loop. Sorry, guys. So so niche marketing or attacking a niche market. You hear this quite a lot as a good strategy for launching a business. I talked to Nigel Levy, who's a well-known writer and producer, director, who's involved in the Formula One Netflix series, which was a smash hit. So he's launching a business, and we talk about him launching his new business into a niche market and the pros and cons of that. I have an opinion on it, and we'll get into it. So 7:30 p.m. this evening, again live on YouTube. And again, if you have any questions during that broadcast, and you want to know more about niche marketing and the strategy around that, you can ask me or Nigel during the Q&A piece of that broadcast. So 7:30 p.m. this evening. So more interesting than Netflix, if you ask me. Certainly, hopefully, you get more out of it. Nigel's a pretty interesting guy. I think you'll find his insights also useful. I will be releasing my new video blog on, I think Sunday. I'm just looking at my notes. Sunday at 1 p.m. And basically I talk about how your training can trap you. So sometimes people need to untrain themselves to truly get free and do what they're meant to be doing in life. So that's hopefully going to be entertaining and interesting. So 1 p.m. on Sunday, again, I'll be there in the live Q&A. So if during the broadcast you have any questions about the knowledge I'm trying to download or the point I'm trying to make, then feel free to ask me questions during the broadcast. I'll be there. So 1 p.m. on Sunday. So maybe just before you have your Sunday lunch, a bit of knowledge, a bit of entertainment, and hopefully something useful. So if you feel like sometimes your training has given you a benefit, this talks really about the opposite, how your training can trap you. So I've seen it with things like people that become lawyers. Sometimes they end up selling time for the rest of their lives, and their training traps them. They feel they've got to leverage that lawyer training instead of put it in the bin and do what they're meant to do. So and then finally on Monday we'll be talking about mental health. This is something I think that's just not talked about enough. I mean, it comes up every so often in the news cycle, but I don't think it's talked about enough. I'll be talking to a fantastic entrepreneur. Actually, my partner on today's broadcast, a firm called Xccelerate, is founded by Levin Hamlani, and he basically will be sharing his thoughts on mental health, his story around the struggle, I guess, we all have as entrepreneurs, and we'll be getting into the detail of relationships and that sort of stuff. So that will be on Monday. Again, you can go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Simon Squibb, and you'll be able to see when the broadcast is and set a reminder if you don't want to miss it, and or tune in on Monday when we have that conversation. Great. Okay, so I can see that the 3 people we're speaking to this morning are here already. So why don't we jump onto Zoom where I'm talking to them and say hello. I always find at the beginning there's a little bit of technical this, that and the other, so let's see how that plays out. Morning, Connor. Nice to see you, man. Thanks for joining.
Morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Good, yeah, very good. Where are you?
I am currently in Xcelerate's workspace.
Right.
In Hong Kong.
Yeah.
The rest of your audience.
Great.
I'm in quarantine in a hotel.
Oh, right. In Hong Kong or?
No, in Singapore.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, so Singapore's got a quarantine system, have they?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's 14 days quarantine in a hotel, kind of. Is it a specialised hotel? Allocated stuff, or?
Yeah, they allocate us upon landing.
Oh, okay. So they give you a hotel you must stay in when you land?
Yeah, you can't go out though. But I'm not complaining, I'm being fed here.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. It's really, if you can't move and there's food all around you all the time, then Yeah, I know the feeling. In London, we're in kind of a weird situation. We're kind of in lockdown, we're kind of not. It's very strange. Very, very confusing. But in Singapore, they don't even let you leave into the country, right? So I guess that's a whole... In England, they're talking about it, but I can't see how they can stop people from going outside, you know?
I thought they just cared about people coming in.
Yeah. Well, it's all a mess, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we also have Avanish. Are you there?
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Here, I'll turn on my video. So for some reason, I can't connect on my laptop, but anyways, I'm here. How are you guys? All good?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah,
all good.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm good.
Good. So everyone can hear everyone, and I guess we can kick off, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just briefly talk about. Okay, so this is a kind of a new thing. This is a new thing that I'm doing with Xccelerate, and I'm broadcasting our chat as well with my community. So my idea, and you guys feel free to elaborate on what you need. But my idea is really to listen to each of your stories for a couple of minutes. I got your emails, but I want everyone to understand your basic story. And then I think we'll just spend a bit of time, maybe one by one, having a chat, and then everyone can kind of listen to everyone else's insights and stories and points. And hopefully, at the end of it, we can come to some useful conclusions. And maybe after we've done your download, I'm also happy to go into a little bit about me. I don't know what Levine's told you about me, but I'm happy to explain a bit more about what I'm doing, if you like. So, how does that sound?
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
All right, Thomas, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about you?
I was born in the UK, but I spent the majority of my life growing up in Hong Kong. I studied architecture, but very recently I've decided that that's not my passion in life. My passion in life is actually to try and do more for the environment and sort of in the sustainability field. So about a year ago, about a year ago I decided that I wanted to move out of architecture sort of ASAP. And I quit my job in March, and I've taken Xccelerate software engineering course because I'm quite a technically minded person. And also I want to use sort of technology and the latest innovations to try and solve the global problems we have today. So as I'm going through this course, one of my sort of passions is to start my own business. And looking around at Hong Kong, what I sort of see is a city that's not really very passionate, not really very aware about sustainability and about the climate crisis in general. So what I was trying to do is to potentially start a business that helps to raise awareness in Hong Kong and connects. It would be a sort of like a carbon dashboard where people could come onto the website or the app. They could track the amount of carbon they're emitting, and then it would respond by giving practical solutions that you can do in a local environment, in Hong Kong, that you can do to reduce your impact on the environment, but also to promote other sustainable and sort of environmental, NGOs, events, other businesses. Just try and create one immersive platform to get people more excited about sustainability. So if they might come on because they're vegetarian or vegan, and they might learn a host of other things about the current situation. And that's sort of why I've come on today, is just to kind of get a bit of advice, because with a background in architecture, obviously the business acumen is, well, I personally feel like it's lacking a little bit, and that's something I'm trying to catch up on.
Fair enough. Thanks for that. And where are you with the project right now? What status is it?
I'm trying to build a working model of it, and trying to talk to potential investors and partners that might be interested.
Have you read a book called The Lean Startup? The Lean Startup. Eric Ryan's.
Yep.
Okay, so just make a note.
I think I heard you speak about it in one of
your
videos.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I wish I'd written it myself. It's really useful. But I think for what you're doing, there might be something in that that's useful to you, because it talks about a minimum viable product. and,
Yes.
and how to build it, and how to test it. Give some good case studies. Worth checking out just kind of off the bat. Yeah, okay. I think it's a great cause though. So yeah, great download. Thank you. Maybe guys, can you just maybe turn off your mics when someone's talking? 'Cause there's a lot of other noise going on in the background. But maybe we'll move to the next. Maybe Wei Ling, could you talk next? Give us a little bit of background. By the way, I get names wrong all the time, so I'm slightly dyslexic. So feel free to correct me if I say your name wrong. Okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I'm Wei Ling, and I actually stayed in the UK for 5 years because of high school and university. And I graduated in law, and I decided that I didn't want to be a lawyer because I was more interested in startups and tech. So I took 2 years off to go into the tech field. So I was in consultancy doing strategic partnerships between startups and corporates. So I learned quite a bit about the startup world and the different verticals. And then I took out like a program for Xccelerate, learning about programming because I wanted to understand and to be able to talk and discuss the products with tech co-founders. So, but on the side, I did lots of nonprofit work. So I do lots of different areas, from animal welfare to religious and community building programs to education and poverty programs. So what I really wanted to do is to use my professional experience to be able to help the nonprofits field, particularly the education and animal welfare circle, because I have my own nonprofits which are on education and animal welfare. So what I have, my greatest problem is actually trying to find a good business model to keep it sustainable. Because I feel like the problem with a lot of nonprofits is that they have lots of inefficiencies with regards to business operation and also finance management. So that's why I wanted to connect with you.
Okay, and where's your present project at exactly? Is it in the early stages? What's the...
Well, I have my own animal welfare nonprofit, which I've run for 11 years.
Oh, okay.
And for education, I think I would say in the development stage, maybe about a year or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And what accelerator were you working with then?
Mine was the data science, the full-time course.
You mentioned the corporate accelerator partnership program. Who was it with? I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Which one?
You said the corporate accelerator tech.
Oh yeah, that was back in Singapore actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was the name of it? Because I'm just.
It's called Padang and Co.
Padang. Sorry, I still couldn't hear. I'm so sorry. Say again.
Padang and Co.
Oh, partner and co. Is it? Partner and co. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. Wow. You know, when you kind of talk about all the things you've done, you know, kind of trained lawyer, taking time out to do stuff with purpose, animal welfare group for 11 years. It's quite impressive, Wei Ling. So it feels like you're quite aware. You're searching for that way, and I agree with you about the non-profit problem. I know exactly what you mean. There is definitely an issue there. But no, just kind of give me a one-sentence kind of overview of the education piece. Where do you see it going? What's there?
So for education, I think it's more of providing people with the tools and accessibility to information, because I think right now, especially in more developed countries, I think it's really about your family background and how much wealth you have to give you a head start in life. So I want to increase the access to information and resources so that no matter where is your starting point in life, you could have that same tool to propel you to like better grounds.
Yeah, that feels very similar to my mission, by the way. I'm trying to build out tools to help people start businesses or grow their businesses, and I know exactly what you mean. It's a fascinating area, yeah. All right. Why are you back in Singapore?
Uh, I'm back in Singapore because I finished the course and I have to go back to attend to some things.
Okay, so you're not planning on staying there? Is it just a temporary?
No, I'm still waiting on whether I'll get my job in Hong Kong. So everything's still in tandem because, COVID, it makes things more tricky.
The reason I ask is mainly because when thinking about building out a business, I know Singapore and I know it has a lot of programs to help startups and help businesses. So my advice, I can tailor it a little bit to the marketplace you're in. So of course, depends on where you want to end up. But all right, thanks, Raylene. We'll come back to this in a second, okay? Jaden,
Thanks.
do you want to give us your 2 minutes?
Sure. Apologize for the noise, at the back. Sorry.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So my name is Jaden, and I'm currently staying in Hong Kong and working in DBS Bank as a operation officer, and I will be working as a graduate associate as well next month. And I've been staying in the United States for 5 years, and I've come back for 1.5 years right now. So I probably worked in Hong Kong for 1.5 years. So I study finance in the state, but that's only kind of part of my passion. But my real passion is actually bring happiness and joyfulness to the people in Hong Kong, especially Hong Kong people has a lot of stress, and I can feel that they have a lot of negative thoughts. So I'm currently at my side, in my spare time, I spend time with my friends and a few partners starting a production company. It's a video production company, and try to do some videography, quality videography, to bring out some positive message, especially trying to inspire young people to chase their dreams, because in Hong Kong, it's very expensive to chase the dreams, because here is a financial city, and when you talk about dreams, teenagers is just scared and feels like they don't have a future. So I hope to use my startup to bring out the positive message and inspire them more. That's my plan.
I like it a lot. I spent 20 years in Hong Kong, so
Nice.
I know exactly what you mean, and there's sometimes a mindset issue that the amazingness of Hong Kong can also be quite daunting. When you look at the skyline, you look at all the wealth and the power. But if you're not part of that wealth and power, it feels very unobtainable, right? I mean, just having your own home in Hong Kong is hard, right? Having your own space
it's tough.
Is tough, yeah. But how long have you been at DBS?
I've been out 1 year and 1 month.
Right. Yeah. I actually worked with DBS. We did a corporate accelerator program together. We opened up the Vault Lab, which is the accelerator element of DBS. Yeah. So I got a lot of time for DBS. And I think your be positive message probably would resonate with them. I think they also try to be very positive. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And where are you with your be positive concept? Is it just still in a side project mode, or have you actually got a platform up and running? What's the?
So for myself, I'm trying to make it as my mainstream. I hope to use more time to focus on the project. But right now, I want to finish my graduate associate program.
Right.
And but my partner is actually focusing more on startups right now. So it's I got 6 partners right here. So it's kind of I have more spare time to focus on my job first. But at the same time, I will spend more other resources on my startup, so I can balance both sides.
Right. Yeah. Fair. When is your graduation program up?
Oh, it's 1 year, 1.5 years.
So it's 1.5 year left to do. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Jaden. I'm so impressed with all 3 of you so far. So no pressure, Avinash. No pressure. You got to sound as impressive as the first 3.
Okay, a brief introduction about myself. Yeah, my name's Avinash. I just graduated from Oxford Brookes University. I was in the UK. I studied economics, finance, and international business. And with my course, I was fortunate enough to get the chance to work for 1 year. Took advantage of that 1 year. I did 6 months in Singapore working for a fintech VC, and 6 months working for a finance company in the Philippines. I've always been very interested in technology myself, how it works. You know, our generation, we grew up with computers, and always been fascinated how it works. And that motivated me to understand the topic more. So I started studying digital transformation. I actually wrote a book on digital transformation. And from there, I wanted to help businesses grow in a technological way. My role in the Philippines gave me the opportunity to do that by going into the office and spotting out inefficiencies and what they need to do. And just in the course of that 1 year, I also discovered a lot about myself. I'm very into fitness. I've always been really into personal development as well. And I think these are such important things that people, they know it's important, but sometimes they overlook just because of the pace of life, how it goes. This inspired me to start something based on movement. I think just with the pace of life right now, office jobs, especially COVID, working from home, we're trapped at home, we're trapped in a small space, and it can also be demoralizing that, okay, I have to work from home now. I'm gonna work from home and just stay in my house because that's what life is like now. So I feel like people are missing out on the aspect and the importance of movement. I think movement is really important, and it's overlooked. So I wanted to create an app that reminds people to move. People should do dynamic stretching every day. So there are workout apps right now that are available. However, sometimes when people think of workouts and they think, oh, I have to do work. I need to save my energy so I can work. And so they think, okay, workout's too difficult. Hello.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, my little boy is just wondering. He likes your voice. He likes your voice, and he's like, "Can I come and say hello?" So sorry to interrupt your flow. Sorry. This is Aiden. He's my assistant. I have a.
How are you, Aiden?
Say hello.
Hello.
How are you? Hello, Aiden.
Hi.
What are you
Is
doing?
that a toy you bought there?
What are you doing now? Huh?
I'm just going downstairs because Daddy's doing his podcast.
He said he's just going downstairs because Daddy's doing his podcast, so he doesn't want to. This is talking to your point about working from home. This is another element. Yeah, people need to move, but people also need to work. So my whole thing is there's no such thing as work-life balance. There's just life. So so I include my son in everything, even if it stops things sometimes from flowing. But anyway,
That's great. Awesome.
And,
yes, I wanted to create an app that reminds people of movement. And how you can go about doing that. So if a workout is too strenuous for you, if you think that's going to take up too much energy, there's so much better and easier ways to get your movement in. So this can be, programs such as mobility exercises, dynamic stretching exercises, just to make it easy and comforting. Sure, the fact that you got to move, you really got to move around. So yeah, I wanted to create an app based around movement.
I think I know what dynamic moving is, but what is it exactly?
So, take stretching. You have static stretching where you're in one spot and putting your leg up to stretch your quad. Or you're against a wall and you're stretching your calf. Or you're stretching your shoulder by pulling your arm like that. Dynamic stretching involves movement. So, if you want to stretch your legs out, you would do lunges, you would do squats, you would, do exercises that involve jumping, exercises that involve movement that elevate your heart rate and warm your body. So that's dynamic movement and dynamic stretching.
Got it. Okay. Wow. Okay. What an impressive group you are. And I this is the first time I've done a group session like this. Normally I have one person on and I try to give advice. So I'm wondering the best way to help you guys, because you all sound like you're at slightly different stages. But let me just give you a quick bit of background about me, if useful as well. I guess I'm described as a serial entrepreneur, whatever that means. In England, sometimes cereal means you're from a cornflakes packet, so people are like, that sounds a bit weird. But I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started 17 companies, 13 of them from scratch with no money. So, and I've actually discovered that the ones I built with no money were more innovative and more successful than the ones I started with lots of money. I have invested in 66 startups, and I have seen every type of business model and structure that there is. And I now have, I guess, a thesis on, you know, the secret to it all, on how to build a business and what is the right way. And my last couple of companies, well, the last one that's kind of headlines was Fluid. It's actually based in Hong Kong. I built that business up from scratch, and I sold it in 2016 to PwC. And now it's interesting because when I was younger, my you know, to get a job at PwC would have been amazing, but I left school at 15 with no education, so there was no way that PwC were going to even give me an interview. But interestingly enough, I built a business that they couldn't build, and when they bought it, they wanted me to work for them. But by that time, I was an entrepreneur, and I was never going to work for someone again. So it's kind of interesting. Basically, my thesis is based on the concept of a couple of things. The top line point is that you need luck in life to be successful. And I think there's two types of luck. In the dictionary, there's only one definition of luck, and that is a random thing that happens to you. But actually, in my view, there needs to be an additional item put in the dictionary around the concept of luck is a skill. And I think that, you know, there are sayings out there that I think are interesting and good and bad. For example, people will say, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Right? This is a saying that throws, and I think that's not true. In fact, I could argue that sometimes the harder you work, the sicker you get. Kind of to your point, Amish, you know, there's an element in Hong Kong, and it's absolutely true, where there's this culture of work, but a lot of people work very hard and never make it. And so, you know, I see that luck is a key ingredient, and to be lucky, to kind of do the second version of luck. You know, the first version of luck, this random luck, let's call it lottery winners or things that are out of your control, like where you're born, the family you're born into. There's nothing you can do to influence necessarily those elements, but there are points in life where you can influence luck, and I believe generally there's three ways that you can become more lucky. I think the first one is this concept of knowing where you want to go. So for a lot of people, they think they know, maybe they have a vague idea or a business plan, but they haven't really visualized where they want to end up. So I visualized that at 40 years old, when I have a child, I want to be able to spend time with that child, and I visualize this concept also of I decide what I do every day, and I have the freedom to do that. And by visualizing what I want, I made it happen. Now, I've interviewed a lot of people on my podcast show and got some other views of the same point, which is, you know, some people will talk about it as in the concept of manifesting what you want. So you kind of, you know, you've got to know exactly what you want. Now, some people focus on money. Now, often, sometimes, by focusing on money, they get that money. But often they miss the point, because when you've got the money isn't the point. So I always say money only makes you happy if you're already happy. So, you know, most people that are happy and rich are people that were actually not chasing the money. But they had a goal in mind. Maybe in my case, as I say, my goal was always freedom. I didn't want someone else telling me when I should fly somewhere, what time I should get up, and who I should meet today. And so, you know, my idea was always this concept of freedom. But there are three things to make yourself lucky, and one of them definitely is you have to know where you want to go. You have to know your destination. The second element, in my view, hold on a sec. Hold on, guys. The other benefit of working from home is that you can see when the thing's boiling over and your house is about to burn down. So I stopped that from happening, luckily. So yeah, I mean, basically the second element of being lucky that I've discovered in this process of building all these companies, investing in all these companies, and going through the process of becoming quite a lucky person myself is you build up your, you've got to build up your risk muscle. And I think risk is actually a muscle in your brain, and you've got to build up your risk appetite and your risk muscle. And a lot of people psychologically hate the concept of fear, and fear is very much linked to risk. And I have a belief that fear is actually an asset, that fear is a skill also given to us to help us survive. And so, but a lot of people, when they feel fear in the modern world today, the first thing they feel is, I want to get rid of that fear feeling. And actually what you're meant to do is leverage fear to push through. And the instinct you don't want is panic. So a lot of people feel fear around starting their own business or leaving their job and starting a business and all of these things. But to me, fear is giving you the energy to do it. And so I learned from a very young age. I mean, I was 20 when I first stood on a stage and talked to thousands of people. And I know when someone asked me, I pushed through that. I went on stage, and career started to really take off. So I've learned to lean into fear, to enjoy fear, and to just be careful I don't get caught in panic, which is a completely different thing. So the second thing you need is this risk muscle. You need to build it up. You need to understand the psychology of fear. The human race have this whole thing where in marketing, and I'm a marketing person, so I always look at things in the marketing context. If you say to the market, hey, buy my product and you can save $1, or you say, did you know it costs you $1 to not use my service? People always go with the second one, because the idea of loss, the cost of something, is much more powerful than the idea of saving. The idea of saving is I'm okay, but the fear of loss, the fear of a cost to you, is much more powerful in communication and in marketing. And then the third thing you need to be more lucky in life, and I think this is generally good advice for all of you, so this is why I'm going into it a little bit more, is this concept of persistence. So when everyone's starting a business, what I always say to people, they all, what's my title, what's my structure, and I always say to CEOs or founders of companies, really your number one job title is persistence. You've got to just keep going at it, even when it feels like no one is listening to what you're saying, no one cares what you've got to offer. There is an element of you've got to push through. Now, that doesn't mean to say you don't adapt and you don't change, but I'm talking about, in my view, what I've seen over the last 30 odd years of doing business myself and other people, is that often it's that persistence. Now, my agency business, Fluid, which I sold to PwC for more money than I'll ever need, I noted that business many times almost went bankrupt. I was operating in 2003 when SARS hit Hong Kong. They call SARS, a coronavirus 1.0. It kind of is literally the original coronavirus. And I don't know if you guys were probably really young. You all look really young to me. You were probably really young when 2003 SARS hit, but I was in my 20s, and it was a scary, scary moment. It was a bit like now. Everybody stopped doing business. Our big clients at that time just said, sorry, we're going to stop all spending. And everybody around me in my industry just started laying off people like crazy. And there wasn't furlough like you've got now, which is a temporary laying off. It was literally sorry, we're going to have to shut. And big companies shut during that time. Now, this is a slightly different point, but what happened to me during that time was, we pushed through. In fact, every time they laid off someone good in the industry, which I could never have hired because they were in a good job in a good company prior, so why would they come and work for me? When they got laid off during 2003, we hired them. Now, when everyone else was laying off, they're like, why is Fluid hiring? And we did two things. One, we hired the talent while we could. We took a risk, you can argue, because who knows when the market was going to come back. But then when the market did come back, and this was the calculation, everyone doubled down twice as hard to catch up on the quarter that they'd lost. This is going to happen again. right? Companies are going to come back and say, right, we've got to catch up on what we've lost in the last 3 or 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever it ends up taking. But point is, if you're in the right position at the right time, you've taken risk, you've been persistent, and you know where your destination is, you can really apply yourself through hard times or good times. But actually, the best opportunities come in hard times. So that's my background. Today, I'm dedicating myself to doing this, basically helping people figure out how to start a business, how to grow a business. And as an entrepreneur myself, I think sometimes it can be quite lonely being an entrepreneur. You're the person at the top. I know a lot of people in England, for example, right now, who they're working very hard in this difficult time to make sure their staff are okay. They're working very hard at this time to make sure their existing clients are okay. And they're trying to figure out their cash flow, and they're trying to figure out the future and trying to reorganize their business structure to work from home and so forth. But they don't take care of themselves. Kind of to your point, Avnish, about health and well-being. I mean, they just don't take care because they're almost like the last on the list. And a lot of people in England, for example, if you look how government rollouts have happened all around the world, you know, the entrepreneur is almost like the last person on the list to get any help. It's almost like, well, you know, those business owners, you know, they don't need to worry about it. Actually, they're the ones that have often been on the edge for a long time themselves. You know, they've got no income guarantee coming in for themselves. They've been ploughing it back into their business. They've been trying to pay people more so that they stay and they're happy. They're trying to build out their business. Every time they make any money, they're trying to put it back into the business. So actually, entrepreneurs are often the ones on the edge the most. And so, anyway, my ambition long term is to help 10% of the world's unemployed start a business of their own. And I think my starting point is just to help the existing entrepreneurial ecosystem get stronger so that they can help me in that mission of helping 10% of the world's unemployed start a business of their own. So that's my background. Hopefully my point about luck is useful to you. I think it's something totally underrated as a skill set and hardly talked about, because for a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and myself included, when I sat down to write my book about how I'd done it and how brilliant I was, it wasn't until I kind of got really honest with myself about how brilliant I was that I realized that actually a lot of the reason that I made lots of money or I had quite a few successes were lucky moments. In fact, and I'm going to say entrepreneurs don't want to say that because it takes away their power. Why would you buy a book from someone that says, you know, I'm not that smart, I just got lucky? You'd be like, okay, he's a lottery winner, is he? You know, like, but no, I think people are missing the point in a way though, because to me, it's not about, success is about, frankly, knowing what success is for you and following that goal. And so I do find it frustrating in this world that success is measured by money, but luckily I've made money, so people, you know, think, oh, he's successful, but that's actually not success to me. But I know for sure, without doubt, without luck, I don't care how clever you are, how hard you work, how brilliant your idea is, successful. So you need to conquer luck as a skill to ensure a higher chance of your business succeeding. Now, all four of you, I'm impressed with just listening to your backgrounds, and then I wonder what the next thing is to help you with. So maybe we can just go back through everyone. Thomas, now I've given you my download. I've heard what you've had to say. Is there any questions that spring to mind that I can help you with?
I guess the main questions are in terms of sort of marketing and producing this minimum viable product. Once you get interest, you get possible interest from both the community and potentially money interest, financial interest. How you sort of go about setting up the business, that's sort of the starting point to take off. Because I've worked for businesses and I've been quite close to some of my bosses, and I've seen the structure of a business once it gets going, and I sort of have my head around that. The part that I sort of struggle with is this part of taking it from, to use your own words, 0 to 1.
Oh, you've listened to all my stuff, haven't you?
Oh, we were on the call the other day.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, 0 to 1, yes. Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, for anyone that wasn't listening to that previous podcast, I always talk about a business cycle being a 0 to 100. And, you know, entrepreneurs tend to be very good at building businesses a 0 to 1 stretch. And then, you know, people like PwC who bought my business, they are not good at the 0 to 1. They're not good at taking risk, being inventive, coming up with new ways of building things. But what they do have is once the business is up and running and the formula is proven, they've got 50 offices around the world. They can copy and paste that and place it in every office. Right? I personally didn't want to open up 50 offices around the world and be on a plane for the rest of my life and on Zoom calls for the rest of my life, managing a 50 location office. But PwC have that already. And so, they can take what I built that worked, that was scalable, and plug it into that system. So, but yes, Thomas, I hear you, yeah. All right, well, why not just talk about that for a second? Because I think all of you probably need this bit of insight. Now, I mean, of course, there's the practical, obvious stuff like registering a company. That's all pretty easy, okay? There is one cautionary tale when registering and setting up a company that I will have for people that they seem to overlook, which is the trademark of your name. So a lot of people sit around a table and they'll come up with a great name, and then they'll find a URL, maybe, .com if they're lucky, or .com.hk if you're in the Hong Kong market, and they'll be like, right, I've got my name, I've registered the company in that name, and I've got my URL, right? But actually, one of the most important things that so many people overlook to kind of look into is getting the trademark of that name. And so I've been involved in some pretty hairy situations where I've invested in a business, it's doing really, really well, it's scaling, it's got a really cool name, and then somebody comes out of the woodwork and says, we own that name. And then they try to basically, they legally can say, all the revenue you've gained up to this point is actually their revenue, because you've used their name. So it's just one thing to be cautious about on the trademark side. It's not expensive to trademark a name, but just keep that in mind when you're building out a business. Then on the, let's call it the more holistic stuff, like I said about like destination, I think that's sometimes a little bit overlooked. I always talk about this concept of purpose, and this is, this gets into all of you, by the way. When I listen to all of you, you've got something that I don't see very often, and I mean this with all due respect to young people, but in young people, I don't see this as often as I would like, which is purpose-driven ideas. So I think that's a key element. So it's not, there's a good TED talk by a guy called Simon Sinek. You guys should, if you haven't listened to his TED talk, listen. But basically, he talks about this concept of start with why. And so there's three elements. It's kind of like what you do, how you do it. That's how most businesses then launch. They know what they do and they know how they do it, and away they go. But not enough businesses spend enough time on why they do it. And the why is actually what generates the culture. That's actually what generates, that's what's motivating me. I don't need to work anymore. I could spend all day with my son. He's brilliantly funny and we have so much fun, why would I not just do that all day, and exercise? To Amanish's point, why would I go out there and invest in this platform and doing stuff that I'm doing with you guys? And it's because I've got a very strong why. My why was when I was 15 years old and left school and left home and started a business, I had no one helping me. I didn't know who to ask. I didn't know what questions to ask to even get help. I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know how to open a business up. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know anything. And so I'm kind of going back to the 15-year-old me, although the average person is more like 27. But the point is I'm going back to that younger me and trying to help. And so it drives me to make sure that folks like you can speed up the process and have more chance to make these businesses successful. And that not only allows you to hire people in this moment in history, that's one of the crucial things, it equally allows you to hopefully give back and contribute and support causes like mine, this kind of entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs concept where we're trying to solve big issues. And so ultimately this why piece is important, and I think you guys have the beginnings of that in all of your ideas, which actually is what impresses me the most. When it comes to building out the business and let's say marketing and funding, now I think a lot of people they think a bit too far ahead when starting a business, and they say, right, I could open up a business, I could get going, but I'm going to need money. And sometimes I try to tell people basically, and it's hard if you don't know it, but I know it so well, that the money bit is actually like step 5, step 6. And so for example, let's take your idea, Thomas. I feel like there's so many tools out there today, let's call them Facebook groups, for argument's sake, that you can leverage to build up the beginnings of a tribe around a carbon dashboard. You know, and you don't need anything built. You don't need anything to elaborate. You just need a well-worded explanation of your idea, and you start a group. Or you go into other people's groups and you start discussing your idea. Now, the good thing about an idea like yours is that if you're purpose-driven and someone has an idea and they copy it, if they're going to solve the carbon problem, then great. You know, I always say, people say, oh, you know, your idea, Simon, about, you know, helping solve the world, you know, 10% unemployed people starting a business of their own. What a great idea. You know, you want to kind of keep that to yourself. I'm like, no. I'm happy if someone copies me. I'm happy if governments do it. You know, I don't mind who does it. I just think that, you know, entrepreneurship needs to become a trained thing. It's not this mysterious thing. It is a trained thing. No one's born a lawyer. No one's born a doctor. You know, you have to be trained in these things. And entrepreneurship, you can wants to help or copy my idea. You know, like, it's fine. And so, you know, I think that's what's great about what you're all doing. But, you know, Thomas, just focusing on you for a minute, you know, I'd probably open up a group or two, or start heavily engaging in a group or two and begin to build up a community around, you know, two sides of that community. One side of people that could end up being, let's call them clients. And on the other side, people that can be, you know, part of your tribe and help you achieve what you want to achieve. And none of that costs money. With all the social media problems out there, you can leverage these things and they are free. Now, it's free because you're the product, but ultimately you can leverage their systems to build up the beginnings of your community. I mean, even myself, I've got the resources to spend a lot of money on things like my podcast and this, that, and the other, but I find actually having no money pushes your innovation level way up. So if I've got money and I just start advertising, I can buy an audience, right? But I prefer to build a tribe, not buy an audience. So instead of spending my money on just getting, you know, shitloads of exposure, I instead do what I'm talking about with you. I build up a community step by step, and I do it frankly without spending money, because I think the money thing distracts you. And that's my point at the very beginning of this chat, where I said, you know, most of the businesses that I've built, I actually built with no money, and they are in fact the most successful businesses for me, because I had to really get to know the audience. I had to really get in there in the nitty gritty. And that allowed me to really understand the market and then do really well. Whereas if I'm starting a company, I'm well funded, I can hire a marketing person, I can hire a this, that, and the other. And then, you know, I sit on top of that mountain, but I don't really know what's going on. And so, starting a business with no money is actually the best way. And now when it comes to a certain point in the business, I will accept that there need for money. But for me, and I can say this, I think, as an investor, I think investing sometimes, as an investor, your agenda is different to the people you're investing in, right? My agenda, if I invest in something, is to make money out of that investment. But your agenda may well be, it sounds like all of you have this trait, again, you know, doing something positive in the world, doing something good. So that might mean that for years you don't necessarily make a huge profit. And therefore, you know, the investors, you either have to get them on the same page or consider not getting an investor. And my process for getting money into my business has always been, my preferred route is not getting an investor at the beginning. My preferred route is kind of one of two things. One is my partner comes in, or partners come into the business. They bring a skill set of some sort to the table, and then they co-invest with me, and whatever that may be it their time, resources, and network. And that's worked for me. At the same time, I have also worked out basically finding anchor clients, partners. So in my agency business in the early days, we had CNN and those as that kind of anchor client, and then we scaled up from there. And then in Nest, which was my corporate accelerator and investment business, you know, we basically found partners like AIA, the life insurance company, and DBS Bank, as I mentioned earlier. You know, we found anchor partners for our mission, and that allowed us to, you know, have 50 people working, helping startups, which is what Nest was doing. Although we weren't making profit from that, we had the resources to deliver on our mission. Anyway, I'll stop there, Thomas. But hopefully, that gives you some basics of this. What else do you need to do before we maybe move on to someone else for a bit?
The only other question I would sort of have is maybe just a quick overview of sort of starting, maybe how you started up a company such as Fluid, in an environment like Hong Kong where potentially you you don't speak the primary language. Obviously, in that have access to that market, that network is very important and key. So maybe just a quick overview of maybe how you started up Fluid, I think.
Yeah. Okay. You want the glamorous story or the truth?
The truth, obviously.
Yeah. I met someone who was a really, really talented designer, and I also fancied her. So now I probably get sued. It'd be like a Me Too movement. I don't know. I get into trouble probably for saying this now, but I did. I just thought she's amazingly talented, and she's beautiful, and she's so smart, and I want to help her. But I wanted to help her because of her talent, but the fact that I also thought she was a wonderful human being helped. And so I started helping her. She was a designer. And so I was a business person. By that point, I had already started, I think, 11 or so companies. I knew how to start businesses and so on, but I was just trying to help her. And I liked what she was doing. She was basically designing a magazine at the time, and she was helping a few people with their branding and for their companies, which appealed to me because I like to start businesses. So it helped. I like the fact she was also helping people start businesses. But she wasn't really monetizing what she was doing. She wasn't a marketing person. She wasn't a business person. So I just said I'd help her. And I took quite a hands-on role helping her. And then, she's now my wife, by the way. So 20 years later, she's my wife, and we have a 3-year-old son. But we basically decided to start a partnership together. And, we did a 50-50, which, by the way, since then I've done other 50-50s with other people, and it's not always good to do 50-50 because, who's the decision maker? If I want to go global and she wants to stay local, who's the decision maker? So I don't necessarily recommend what I did in the early days, but it worked out for us beautifully because we had this equal partnership, which somehow I wasn't 49% and she was 51%, or vice versa. There wasn't like a power dynamic going in on the equity. We were just like, let's do this together. And we had very clear job roles. Mine was front end, go talk to clients, business development, and get on stage and talk about what we do. And Helen was behind the scenes with the creative team, hiring the creative team, managing, motivating, and supporting the creative team, and executing on, frankly, the work that I brought in. And so so that's how we started. Now, your point about language is interesting, and I'm always a bit cautious about saying this without sounding insulting, but I lived in Thailand for a few years and I learned the language. And what was funny about learning the language was it was great for me. I felt very excited, and I still do, that I've learned a second language. Because for English people, we're very arrogant. Learning a language is almost like, what's the point? Everyone speaks English. But it was great. I enjoyed the learning experience. But in Thailand, I noticed, if I tried to speak Thai to someone, like I'd say, I was in a shopping mall and I'd say to one of the people managing the shopping mall, I'd be like, where's the toilet in Thai? And they'd reply back in English. It's just down there on the left. So they wanted to learn English and I wanted to learn Thai. I was like, what's the point of learning Thai? It's just... Anyway, so I learned when I lived in Hong Kong to kind of embrace what my strengths were instead of trying to learn something that weren't my strengths. So, I was never going to be a native Cantonese speaker, right? So I'll just hire people that are native Cantonese speakers and I'll focus in on what I know. And equally, at the same time, there's an element of niche. Right? So, we were the only real kind of, let's call it, westernized agency with a local play. So Helen, who's now my wife, who was my partner in the business, is born in Hong Kong, grew up in Hong Kong. And so, we have a local creative with an international ability run by a international person. And there were meetings where I needed to bring in people to help me with the language. But Hong Kong as an example, most of nearly everyone speaks English. First of all, and secondly, the executive teams are definitely speaking English. We were working with CNN. They're speaking English. We were talking with Estee Lauder. When they're international. Yes, they've got some talented local people in the office, but they're an international brand and they're speaking English. So and I found there's this concept that I'm careful to throw around, but it's some way of illustrating the point that sometimes people spend so much time trying to get better at what they're not good at, instead of just go really hard and focus in on what they are good at. And so for me, language is kind of like, okay, it's not really a big deal. PwC, which is a British company in 50 markets around the world, but the guy that started it, he doesn't know 50. But yeah, I mean, and then just the fluid story is a long story with lots of highs and lows. But one of the things we did at the beginning, we listed all the things that we felt as an organisation we could deliver on, and then we went out to the market and asked the market what they need, and slowly we got rid of things that we felt we weren't the best at, or we weren't competitive at, or we didn't enjoy, and then we managed to focus in on what we did like. And we had this thing called, we were the design and marketing. Most people are just design, or most people are just marketing. So we already had instantly something quite unique where we were both design and marketing. But we weren't at the beginning. At the beginning, we were literally, Helen's skill of designing. Really, at the beginning, all I did is I went back to those people and said, she did design for a very high profile, Deutsche Bank. She did some work for Deutsche Bank, and she was charging nothing for it because she just wanted to do it. It was a project at the Rugby Sevens. It was a massive project, but she just wanted to do it. Which is what a lot of creative people are like. And I'm like, no. This is Deutsche Bank. We're going to charge them $1 million to do that. Or we're not going to do it. We'll do something else. And sometimes, that's basically, the beginnings of it. It was like, at the beginning, I just kind of restructured the value of what was being offered. And once we landed that big client or two, paying us properly, then we could scale the business up. And what I did was, we started out as a service business, and that was fine. We work for clients. And then slowly but surely, I moved this more to the partnership model, which is, yes, we're working with you as a partner to, for example, launch a new product, but we want a piece of the success of that product. And then finally, the end model, for me, which was this concept of, we'll work for you for free to help you, but we want equity in the business, which was much more scalable than the original service business model, which was, you give us work, you pay us, we do it, we make 20%, 30% margin if we're lucky. So it was an evolution of that business. But interestingly enough, when I sold the business to PwC and I asked them, why are you buying this business for so much money? Just as the contract's been signed, at the end of it all, and they said something interesting to me that hadn't really figured into I thought they were buying our case studies, they were certainly buying our ability, and they were saving themselves 2 or 3 years. They could have done it themselves with the money they paid, right? They could have hired the people and built the business up themselves. But in a way, they were saving themselves time because they'd take a year or two to get the case studies and a year or two to find the right people. So they were saving themselves time by buying us. But the thing I didn't really think about was that, and this is what the CEO of PwC said to me. He said, Simon, we're buying your culture. The culture you built inside the business of, loving design, creating cool things, thinking outside the box. No, this is not traditionally what, accountants think like. So that's the fluid story. Again, I think, it's good to share it with you all because I guess it's relevant. Thomas's questions is relevant to probably all of your needs. But maybe because I'm running out of time a little bit, maybe we could jump to someone else now who might have a question based on all the stuff that's been downloaded. Hopefully, Thomas, that was useful for you. Jaden, do you want to give it a go? So
I got a question about for startups. Can you just advise, give us some advice? How does a startup can do effective marketing? As you said, because marketing and funding should be the next, or maybe the fourth, fifth step. But at the beginning, we should still do some marketing, right? Apart from minimal viable product like the MVP.
Yeah.
How can we do some effective marketing efforts?
Yeah, I mean, marketing is a funny old word because marketing is split into so many different areas, right? I mean, for me, I always like PR. I think PR can be quite powerful. And then I you know, so for example, when I launched my investment business, I got on Bloomberg talking about how Hong Kong startups have a great opportunity, you know, good rule of law, low tax when you do well, easy to set up a company and so on. You know, and then from that Bloomberg broadcast, which was apparently to 18 million people, which, you know, I had a bit of fear for that, and then I leaned into the fear, that's fine, let's go on Bloomberg, 18 million people are going to hear what we've got to say. You know, that's so much more effective than me spending money on ads on Facebook trying to get my message out, right? On a micro level, I think for marketing, it's interesting because I look back at the Fluid days, big part of what made us successful was referrals. You know, so if you can, you know, and frankly, referrals were how Facebook did so well. You know, Facebook got it going in one university by having an original email list inside one university, an alumni thing. So I think if you watch the Social Network movie, if it's absolutely accurate, I think it was 300 emails or something, you know, saying here's a Facebook, try it out. And then people went on Facebook, they liked it, and then they started inviting their other friends in other universities and other, you know, and that referral system was all the marketing they needed for the early days. And so it's kind of what I was saying earlier to Thomas about groups. You know, I don't think people leverage groups properly. You know, there's some amazing groups out there. I mean, I'm a member of a startup group with 1.2 million people in it. You know, and I think that there's an opportunity within that sphere to get some traction going. And I like referrals and I like PR because in theory they're free, right? Bloomberg have got the readership and the viewership. So if you can get on these systems and talk about what you're doing, you only need one person to hear it that can help you or step up or join you or invest. Which is why I like doing what I'm doing now. I mean, I can see online right now, you know, maybe we've got on all the different networks about 100 people listening in, right? Which doesn't sound like a lot of people. But to me, you only need one of those people to be listening to what you guys are talking about and saying, hey, I really like that idea and I can help you. And so yeah, that's my quick thoughts, Jaden. Hopefully that's useful.
Yeah, thank you. I want to correct myself, like the graduate associate program is actually 2 years, not 1.5.
Oh, I see. So the whole thing is 2 years in total, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. I'm mistaken.
Oh no, that's okay. No, that's cool.
Thank you.
Cool. No problem.
So I have a question, actually.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned the importance of building a community. So I was just wondering, so say something like my idea, building an app, I would go about it by building a community first, maybe posting YouTube videos or a Facebook group like you suggested, and essentially that, using social media to build this community. How far into building this community would you say, okay, it's time to launch the app? Like, are there signs I should look for to say it's ready, the community's good, it's time to launch the app?
You know, I don't think people use their gut instinct enough. They're so busy looking for external validation, they don't check internally, and they don't learn to develop their gut instinct enough. But I mean, there's a moment when you just kind of like, you know. I mean, right now you've got a theory about a business, and you have a gut instinct that people need it. If you've got 3 people, I mean, I forget who said it, so this isn't my insight, but I'm trying to remember who said it. But basically, the saying is something like, what you want to do is build a business that if you removed it tomorrow from the ecosystem, people would be really upset. You know, like that, you know. So if you've got 3 people that are using it and you suddenly say, oh, you know, we don't have any funding anymore, we're going to shut it down, and they're upset, you know, you've got something that probably should be scaled up. Right?
Okay.
So, I mean, I have it what I'm doing. I mean, I have a community of people that are enjoying learning from my content. So that's pushing me to keep doing the content. And so, and so it's kind of like that, you know, but, you know, being more kind of detailed about it, if you can get proof of concept, if you can show, I mean, I was just talking yesterday to a for-profit, purpose-driven business, where they have figured out a formula that if they spend a certain amount of money on Facebook, they get a certain amount of people applying to their program, and then it's called Matchable. Why don't I promote them? They're good people. It's called Matchable. And well, basically they match people that want to help with purpose-driven businesses. So basically they worked out a formula though where they could say, right, you want to help, you've got time, you want to be find purpose in your life, whatever. You can sign up to our program, and then we'll allocate or find you something that's going to fulfill your desire to learn and so on. And they basically figured out a formula to do it, and then they would have membership. And basically, the cost of it all wiped its face, right? So in other words, what they spent on promoting the platform, the membership fees they got each time they did it covered the cost of doing it, and they could just keep repeating it. System, and you can go to investors and say, this is my formula, I've spent no money and this is what I've achieved, and with the money this is what I can turbo boost it, then that's the formula, I think, then for investment and so on. But bringing on investment is not the solution solver. It can be a problem causer just as much as a problem. I personally go as far as I can without bringing in outside influence, unless they're bringing value to the table that's so immense that it's not about the money.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you for putting some insight into that.
You're welcome. Wait,
Sorry, Simon,
Wei-Ling.
may I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so can you briefly explain, or describe, when you start Xccelerate, how did you set up the checkpoints that as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of stuff to handle, right? And at that time, how do you set checkpoints, or I would say some signals that you can keep scaling up, at the first step? So, I mean, when you start, you have a lot of stuff to handle, and then what checkpoint did you set to keep, to motivate yourself, or I would say, telling yourself, the business is going okay, and you keep going to the next step?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question, and part of it is, and you've got this problem, Jaden, if I can be honest with you, that sometimes with really clever, smart people, they can survive without the business doing well. So one of the elements of my life, what I've always done is this concept of burn the boats, right? Again, this isn't my saying, but I like it a lot, which is, if you want to succeed at the Be Positive platform, in reality, what you need to do is you need to look at any business you're doing as an island, and you're going to go to an island and you're going to build your own life on this island, right? You're going to build your own skyscrapers, you're going to build your own restaurants, you're going to build your own whatever. And when you get to this island, you first stand on the island and there's nothing there. You're like, shit, this is scary. And the boat that got you there to that island, the first thing you need to do is burn that boat. Because otherwise what happens is you get to this island and you're like, shit, this is so scary. There's so much to do. You know what? I just get back on my boat. I know the old island. It's not perfect, but at least, I know, where to get the food from. So you get back on the boat and you go back. Now, when I got to Hong Kong, in the handover period, I just, if you're not in banking, if you're a Western person in Hong Kong and you're not in banking, there ain't that many jobs in 1998, and so if I wanted to stay in Hong Kong as I did, and I meet someone that I kind of, then, basically I have a choice. I either make it work and burn, and I don't look at any other options behind me. Basically, when I got involved in help old job, I got business class travel. It was so nice. Forget all that. That's all gone. This is what I'm doing, and it's going to be painful. But eventually, it's painful short term, and the most joyous thing in the world long term. Whereas I think a job is the opposite. A job is so nice at the beginning and so painful long term. Right? Starting your own business is so painful at the beginning, so joyful long term. So I'd rather have the pain at the beginning and the joy the long term, and be retired at 40 and able to help people and spend time with my family and be healthy, than I would, the other way around, which is now most people who had a wonderful job in their 20s that were kind of laughing at me a bit, like, why are you working so hard, mate? I'm out partying. and then later on there's a complete difference.
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
So I think I'm saying quit your job, really, Jaden. And I might get into trouble with Pratish, the CEO of DBS Bank, who I know, who'll be like, Simon, what are you telling my top quality people to quit? But yeah.
Thank you.
Wei Ling, you've been very quiet. Have you picked up enough on this? Because I've got to run soon. I want to make sure I've helped you all.
Yes, they've been very informative. Thank you. Yes, so I think mine is more specific because I've been in the startup space for some time, seeing 95% of the startups fail. So I'm determined that I won't be like them. So I was really thinking like how to monetize the business, because I would see myself more as a serial socialpreneur. And what I was very focused on when I was younger was on the social impact. But what I realized is that the economic yield is also really important in order to create a greater impact. I've done things like fundraising, but it's never on the scale which could rival like a proper startup. So just wondering, how do you try finding the revenues stream, especially when I'm so focused on social impact projects?
Yeah, first of all, there are investors that are specific to social ventures. On my podcast show yesterday, so you can go on goodluckpod.com, you'll see an interview I just did with Sasha Celestial One, and she is the co-founder and COO of an app called Audio, which is all about helping people share their food. 2 million users. But she got investment from social impact investors, so it may be worth listening to her story. Again, I think with social impact stuff, you can find a corporate partner that can at least give you, 1 year's cost covered. And there are a lot of corporate partners that love supporting social activities. So if you can give yourself a 1 year runway to go at this, concept, and then at some point along the line, you can create a monetization element. So even I'm doing this. I'm not just telling you guys what to do. I'm now on my 18th business, and I'm doing all these things I'm telling you about, right? Even though I've got money to throw at these things, I'm still, talking in groups and connecting in communities and building a tribe, exactly like I've just explained to you. But equally, I'm doing everything for free right now. You can probably see from all my content, it's all free, and it's costing me a lot of money to produce it. I've got 3 people on the payroll, and so I'm paying out, but I'm not getting any revenue. But my idea is to build up the community, and at some point, and this is happening, I'm now the official podcast partner for the Start Me Up event in Hong Kong in July. Not that there's money there, but the point I'm making, potential monetization strategy where my mission is to help entrepreneurs, tell entrepreneur stories, get inspirational insights from entrepreneurs to give to other entrepreneurs and so on. But if I can then work with governments to promote their ecosystems and support their startups in those ecosystems, then at some point people like KPMG, who are sponsoring the Start Me Up event, would also sponsor my activity, right? So, there is a point, like what I was saying to Avnish earlier, there is a point where there's a gut instinct where there's value there, and you feel like that you don't have to sell too hard to a corporate. And what I have done in the past effectively is, I've had at Nest, my investment business, we had partners with partnership with Nissan, AIA, American Express, DBS Bank, and they were paying us millions of US dollars. But they came to us actually once we got the system up and running and we got the credibility. And so, there is a timing thing on it, on that. But yeah, it's definitely difficult, Wei Ling. I know what you mean. It's a tricky balance between like having, especially in places like Singapore and Hong Kong, these are expensive markets to live in, no matter run a business in.
So I'm just curious, what kind of products and services do you offer them, and which provides enough incentive for companies to say, or people to say, like, all right, I'll invest in you?
Well, I think I'm talking about 2 things here. One is corporate sponsorship and partnership and income, right? Which is actually my preferred route when building out a business. And then the second is, getting investors on board. Now, there's all sorts of different motivations for investors, right? So for me, right now, my motivation to invest in people is does it support my core mission? So I just invested in a business called Voxo. They're basically a platform designed to help women get trained to be on panels more and in discussions more around certain subjects like fintech, for example. Go to a fintech event online in London, every single person on the panel is a man. But therefore it's not representing 50% of the population and 50% of the consumer base. So that company is helping train and support women to get them at the table. And to me, that's part of my agenda in a way, because I'm not trying to help 10% of the world's unemployed who are men start a business of their own, right? So, and I feel like there's the empowering piece links back to my own empowering piece. So everyone's basically got their own motivation, every investor. There's different cycles as well. Sometimes they've got money, these funds, and sometimes they haven't, depending on when they're raising money themselves or when they've got money. So understanding all of those dynamics is important. But raising money piece is much trickier for me than getting a corporate partner on board. Creating value with a corporate partner is so easy. For me, in my last deals, it's literally like, if you don't invest with me in what I'm doing, you as an organization are going to become obsolete. Because the startups I'm helping and working with are going to replace you. So do you want to be involved in that world and help? In other words, I'm using old brand names that you guys might not even know anymore, but that's kind of the point. There was a very successful brand called Yellow Pages, you might not even know anymore. It was a massive business. Yeah, 20 years ago, it's a massive business. And gosh, do they wish they owned 10% of Google today. So it's that kind of idea that you've got to leverage your strengths today to survive for tomorrow. So that's how a big part. I didn't go in there and say, please give me money and sponsor my program. I went there and said, I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you.
Cool. Just wondering, maybe I could contact you with more specific details, because I'm trying to refine my proposal and stuff.
Yeah. Well, good. Why don't we have a follow-up then, guys? Because this is just a get to know each other session. We can have a follow-up as you fine-tune what you're doing, and based on some of the feedback I've had today. If you've got a deck or you're ready with a little bit more detail, then you can send me a deck and we can have a more detailed follow-up session.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
That'd be really good. Great.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Simon.
Really
All right.
helpful.
If you guys want to, I'll just put in the comments here. If you guys want to follow me on YouTube, that would be great. Subscribe, and then if you guys need to contact me, then I think you've got my email address now, so you just reach out anytime. Okay.
Fantastic. Will do.
All right. Good luck, guys. Keep up the good mission-driven
All right,
work.
thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon.
See ya. Nice to meet you all.
Perfect. Cheers.
Take
Bye.
care.
Yeah, take care.
So there you go, folks. 4 inspirational young people who are thinking